Here's Brody Brazil.
I'll tell you what has been really interesting, for lack of a better word, in recent weeks and months is the contrast of the Tampa Bay Rays. On one hand, you've got so much speculation surrounding this team, what their next move might be, how they might react or handle certain situations, but you have nearly zero communication or conversation by the team kind of stating their intentions. And you'd have to think, like with a brand new story coming out every single day around this team and around so much going on, and we'll get to how Commissioner Rob Manfred is hopeful for this team to return back to Tropicana Field. With so many different stories coming out, you'd have to think at some point that the team would at least want to control some of the narrative surrounding their situation. Or maybe they're intentionally laying in the weeds because they don't know what they're going to do, or they think whatever they might say could hurt their next endeavor. Nonetheless, we don't hear much from the Rays. In fact, I think we heard more from Rob Manfred in literally a paragraph's worth of quotes in the last couple days to the Tampa Bay Times and Mark Topkin, beat writer of the Rays. We heard more from Commissioner Manfred on the Rays' behalf in one little paragraph than we have heard from the Rays in now several months. I'd say at least 2 to 3 to 4 months' time. So here's the article from the Tampa Bay Times. I will link to it down below. Manfred says he is hopeful for this team to return to Tropicana Field by opening day of next season. He also later is going to say that it's the team's intention to fulfill the rest of their lease through the 2028 baseball season. Mark Topkin says this in the Times: repairs to Tropicana Field are moving along, and Major League Baseball officials remain optimistic. Work will be completed in time for the Rays to return for the 2026 season to Tropicana Field, Commissioner Rob Manfred said on Wednesday, as of this week. But Manfred did acknowledge 2 caveats. First off, the idea of being hopeful for anything, yeah, I'm hopeful that $5 million are going to show up on my porch, free and clear, starting tomorrow. Probably not going to happen. Now, I would have to think that the odds of getting a job like this done in time are better than that, but the fact that he's hopeful, but he also has caveats, and he also has reasons why this may not get done in time, it doesn't leave you feeling 1,000% optimistic. In terms of those caveats, one is exactly when the stadium will be ready to host a game. As Manfred said, they are expecting, quote, either for opening day or very shortly thereafter. We're talking about the 2026 baseball season. And look, if they don't get to opening day, if it's a week or 2 behind, that's fine. But weeks and months behind schedule are 2 totally different things. More on that in just a second. So that's one caveat. Ready, but maybe or not by opening day, but ready generally for the baseball season. The other point Manfred made is one all Tampa Bay area residents have to consider regarding summer plans. Quote, obviously, the big contingency is what happens with hurricane season, right? Manfred said at the quarterly owners meeting in New York. Quote, there's not much you can do about that other than keep your fingers crossed. But we are hopeful that we'll get it ready for opening day 2026. End quote. And so basically that's where Manfred puts it in terms of we're going to try. It's what we're aiming for, but there are some things that may not make that concrete yet. Manfred has said repeatedly MLB wants the team to remain in the Tampa Bay area. Side note, he also has not dismissed Orlando or made any comments surrounding that potential leverage or move by the Rays or sale of the Rays or how much official pressure is he putting on Stuart Sternberg to get something done or sell the team. So there's not a lot being publicly declared here. He didn't have much to offer Wednesday about the Rays' extended future, speculation about a potential sale or new stadium possibilities. And let me just say, this is him trying not to step on his own toes. This is him trying to walk a tightrope. More on that as well in just a second. But he did say this, quote, it's clear they, the Rays, are going to honor their lease through 28, he said. I don't really have anything to add beyond that right now. Now, wait a second. This portion highlighted in blue. It's clear they're going to honor their lease through 2028. When was that made clear? It's clear to you, maybe, Rob Manfred, or at least maybe that's the pressure you're putting on the team to actually follow through with their lease. I totally understand that if they're asking St. Pete to put a roof back on Tropicana Field, to spend 56, 67, whatever, how many $1 million to fix up Tropicana Field, I guess that's clear that it's your plan, the team's plan, to stay and continue fulfilling the lease of 3 more baseball seasons. Not this one. It got all pushed back and delayed, but 26, 27, and 28. But when has the team ever said this? So, we're getting more clarity from the Rays situation in the last several months in one sentence, one quote from Manfred than we have from the Rays this entire time. It's clear they're going to honor their lease through 2028. Okay. So now you're holding that baseball team to going back in that stadium for 3 more years. So does that mean Orlando is off the table for the Rays to move there next year? Or maybe Orlando is on the table to continue a negotiation to try and buy this team and then move this team. But then what are you doing? You're having lame duck seasons. You're having the Rays play kind of like what the A's did in 2024. They played a full season basically at the Coliseum, knowing that their long-term plan was Las Vegas and their short-term interim temporary situation was Sacramento. You're going to put the Rays through multiple years of lame duck seasons at Tropicana Field, which got paid for and fixed up, knowing that they might move to Orlando. So what exactly does that mean for the team and its future if they really are going to honor their lease through 2028? Here are some other points. Work on Tropicana Field. It's already started, and it continues kind of in progressive fashion this summer. Back in April, there was that roof approval of $22.5 million. The Teflon fabric roof is already being fabricated overseas. They're going to ship it out here. They're going to start the installation process between June and July. It's not going to be done, I think, until November or December. But there's also still multiple rounds. I think the next round is a $5 million approval for more work to be done inside. But in total, they've approved about, I think it's more like 30 million, 22 plus another 6.5 or so. But there's still another 20 plus million dollars to be approved for the internals and the innards. I heard that word, the innards, to be repaired of Tropicana Field. So it's a progressive approval. They're not just saying, hey, all at once, here's $60 million. And they're also hoping with St. Pete that insurance is going to kick in, but I understand why the city of St. Pete is taking it this way. You don't know exactly what the Rays' intentions are here. The Tropicana Field, as I mentioned before, the lease was extended 1 year. It's now intact through 2028, but it gets me thinking now, what happens when baseball inevitably faces a work stoppage and a lockout ahead of the 2027 season? Is all of this, going back to the Trop, is all of this simply to buy the Rays more time to try and figure something out, to try and clear the dust, let the air settle a little bit, to try and do something else in Tampa and or St. Pete, or to try and sell some of the team, all of the team, to negotiate with Orlando or Nashville or whatever other city might be under consideration? What about that lockout? I forgot about that sound effect, but how does that all play in to the bigger picture here? That noise, by the way, means it's time for the takeaways. I think Manfred being hopeful about this, saying he's hopeful, that isn't much. I realize I just made a whole video on this, but being hopeful about anything, there's no solidity to that. It doesn't actually change much. It doesn't actually mean anything. Like I said, I'm hopeful for things. He's hopeful for things. Why can't he come out and say two parts here? Number one, Major League Baseball is going to work with the city of St. Petersburg and Tropicana Field. We're going to do everything in our power. We're going to help almost assure that this gets done. Not, we'll see. How about this? The Rays are definitely staying in St. Pete for 3 more years. Not to say, well, it's their intention. They've made it clear they're going to stay. You can declare this as commissioner that they will, but I know why he wouldn't. That limits the team's options. And he represents owners across the league who care about team valuations and the ability to sell the team for the highest price. So of course he's not going to come out and say that, but he could. So instead, being hopeful is kind of like a very vanilla comment in all of this. And you know what? If it comes down to just opening day 2026, whether this stadium gets fixed up and is ready or not by, let's say, April 1st, 2026, that kind of doesn't matter. The baseball schedule, it can maneuver back and forth a couple weeks. Let's say the Rays don't play a home game for the first entire month, but they knew that May 1st, Tropicana Field would be ready. Okay, not the biggest deal. We can figure that out. That's, That's not a huge circumstance in the bigger picture. But if we're talking like, well, instead of being ready on April 1st, that stadium's not going to be ready until July 1st, then that would be a big deal. And there's a lot of work to be done. I don't know that they understand the amount of work that's ahead of them, and not only putting on the new roof, but doing that during hurricane season and whatever other damage occurs to the inside of that stadium while it remains unprotected, basically. By the way, this is the first time we've heard anybody state that the Rays will honor their lease through 2028. I've been following this. I've been trying to digest every piece of information I can. I've yet to see that be declared, but apparently that's the case. So Manfred said it kind of before the team really declared it. I know they said that's what they were aiming for, right? I think one of their two co-presidents may have said that several months ago, but that wasn't made black and white very clear and wasn't said very definitively. It's my opinion here what's going on is that with going back to Tropicana Field and making that the option and here's what we're going to do, that's not the Rays declaring that they're staying in St. Pete or they're staying in the Tampa Bay region. That's the Rays trying to stall and buy more time and unfortunately putting Rob Manfred on this tightrope where he's got to be very careful about what he says and how he commits to things. Why can't Rob Manfred say, yes, you know what, Orlando is in the mix of conversation here. The team is open to talking or is able and willing to talk to Orlando just like they're able to talk to Tampa and St. Pete. He can't say that. He also can't say that they're not allowed to or that they won't. He wants to leave all the options open for this franchise because it's in their best interest to not commit to anything until something great comes along or something very opportunistic comes along. So, in my opinion, what we're witnessing here is the Rays trying to stall this situation out. There's a lot going on. And I don't know that their silence has necessarily meant that they know what they're doing behind the scenes. Their silence just means that they're trying to buy themselves time and opportunity in all of this. I don't know if it's strategic in that sense. So Manfred's hopeful for Tropicana Field by opening day of next year, and he says the Rays are committed to playing 3 more years there. A lot of people in Tampa and St. Pete are under the impression that stadium will never host a Rays game again. I guess we'll see. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below. Thumbs up down below greatly helps me, this video, this channel. And also don't forget to hit that subscribe button because you know I would love to see you back here next time.